Hey everybody, Gabe Suarez here. Time for the next commentaries. Primarily, what I want to talk about is the issue of triggers. Now, I did that short video on my perspective, my opinion on that Glock performance trigger. I think it sucks, but people will buy it because it's Glock OEM. And after I put that out, I got a bunch of contacts from people. Well, if that's not a good trigger, what is a good trigger? Okay. Well, look, a trigger has to have certain characteristics. Number one, it's got to be usable, because you can put a trigger on a pistol that's so heavy that it's super safe. You'll never be able to make the goddamn thing fire. That's not what we want. All right. So safety is important. Safety is made up of a number of different characteristics. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's got to be operational in a way that allows you to fire the weapon accurately. Now, we could talk about striker fire triggers. We could talk about single action triggers. We could talk about double action triggers. But what I want to illustrate is this. Okay, look, if we take this particular blaster here, yeah, Smith & Wesson Model 13, talk about old school. Right now, I had Paul over at SI work on this, and the double action trigger is beautiful. Oh my God, it's about 7.5 pounds, I think. And the single action is ridiculous. It's about less than 3 pounds. It's got to be less than 3 pounds. Anyway, so you would carry this like this without a holster, appendix carry, and never give it a second thought, because it's got a long, number one, pull on the trigger, and it's got a reasonable poundage to it at the same time. All right, now you put a 13-pound trigger on here, you're not going to want to carry that thing anywhere because you're not going to be able to shoot it well. All right, so reasonable weight and reasonable travel. All right, now check this out. Let's say the weapon is in this condition right here, 2-pound trigger, nothing impeding this from going off. Okay, so would you carry that appendix carry without a holster? No, that would be stupid. Okay, now what happens is, in the single action world, the 1911 world, and look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a good 1911. Okay, not really my cup of tea, so that's why I don't work with them. Okay, but like for example, this CZ75. All right, also worked on by the guys over there. All right, double action. Okay, it's pretty damn close to the Model 13. So it's about 7.5, okay? And the single action, okay, is right at about 3, okay? So how do double action pistols get through having such a light trigger? Well, because the first pull is going to be about 7.5 pounds, 8 pounds, something like that. And it's got a long, look at that, it's got a long travel before that fires. So it's not going to happen by accident. Okay, and if we're talking about a single action weapon, well, you have a safety. This does not have a safety. I set it up as a decocker, but you can change that up. So this can be a safety. So it's cocked and locked like the old 1911. So you can have a 2.5 pound, 3 pound, 3.5 pound trigger, perfectly safe, because there is a mechanism preventing that from going off. All right, now let's go to the striker fired world. All right. When I first started carrying a Glock, it was 1995, and it was because the double action pistols of that era couldn't be tuned like these can. If this thing was around back then, I probably would never even looked at Glocks. But that wasn't around back then, and what everybody carried would either Beretta 92s. Or SIG 226s, or the old Smith & Wesson series, the double action stuff, the 5906 kind of stuff. And, as much as we tried, those triggers were very, very difficult to make work correctly. Correctly meaning light enough that they would work fine. Now, I was kind of a rebel, so I did it anyway, but it was against department policy to screw with your pistols, okay? With department pistols. So what I did is I always bought my own, and I optimized it as best I could. It was my pistol, and it was a gray area in the policy. and I knew it, but I wasn't afraid because I wasn't going to make any mistakes with it, and so on. But so the strikers became popular because they came out of the box with a 5-pound trigger, and there was no deviation and no change from trigger to trigger to trigger. Now look, I take guys all the time and I teach them to transition from double action to single action, and they do quite well with it. All right, but those are self-selecting people. Those are not police conscripts. And just because somebody was in the military doesn't mean that they were a tier 1 operator. Just because somebody's a cop doesn't mean that they're a gunfighter. Doesn't mean that they're on a SWAT team or some direct action anti-crime squad or something. Most of them are administrators. They're ticket writers. They're that sort of thing. And it's true. The majority go through their entire career without ever firing a shot, and they're very happy about it. Okay? Go figure. But that's true. That's the way it is in the real world. All right? So, now you're a range master, and you got to take these conscripts, and you have to teach them to transition from double action to single action. And then, my God, I got to teach them to decock the thing so they don't shoot their Johnson off when they holster. Okay? You know what? So what do range masters do? Well, we're going to move the entire department to Glocks because it's going to make my job easier. That's the reality of it. All right. But as we progress through this, people realize that trigger on the Glock, we can make it better. And so they started messing around with it and everything else, and sometimes unsafely. And I think that Salient Arms, they came out with a flat trigger first, but they didn't sell it. And so what I did when I was CEO of Suarez International is I said, you know what, we're going to make a flat trigger. And I went out and I started getting them made, and now, I mean, everybody, you can't swing a dead cat without somebody that makes slides and flat triggers. But we kind of started that, and we made the trigger very nice. But what we discovered with the Glock system is that you can only make it so nice. If you try and make it nicer, improve it, you potentially create a weapon that's unsafe. And you have to know what you're doing. Having gone to a Glock armor school and having watched all the YouTube no, you need much more than that. You need understanding of the mechanics of that trigger system, and I don't think that's adequately covered, because the Glock Armorer School is basically a parts replacement school. They don't teach you how to tune things up and how to make them better. They just teach you how to make them factory stock. Okay, so anyway, the quest to make the Glock trigger better. I wrote about this multiple times. The quest for the ultimate trigger. Listen, guys, you're not going to find the ultimate trigger on a striker-fired pistol. That's a fact. That's reality. You want the ultimate trigger, you got to go to something that's single action, like a 1911 or something like that, or a staccato. And if you want something that starts out in double action, then you can have the same thing after the first shot, or if you cock it on the way up. But you're not going to find that on a Glock or an M&P or a 320 or any of those, because those triggers, by their design, their characteristics, they require that they be a little squishy. Now, as far as the performance trigger, you know what? Honestly, look at the video. I mean, that thing. We compared it. I probably should have compared it to a stock Gen 5 pistol. The stock Gen 5 pistol trigger feels better than that performance trigger. Okay, so that's just kind of the way I feel about it, and that's it. But listen, the trigger is important. There's the old saying that you can, a good Indian with a poor arrow is better than a poor Indian with a good arrow. And yeah, I know that may be true, but that good Indian with the shitty arrow is never going to be any better than his equipment. So why not equip the good shooter with a good weapon? That way he can express his skills at the highest level possible, without being handicapped by the equipment that he's been given or that he's trying to make into something better. There are better choices, and we still live in America. This is still, I think, this is still the land of the free. So you have choices. Don't go necessarily with what everybody else is doing because it's cool. Go with what is going to work better for you. Anyway, that's it. Editorial on triggers. Oh, another thing. I am going to be doing the Killing Within the Law flowchart of Deadly Force. I'm going to be doing a Zoom seminar on that, just the use of the flowchart, because I doing the entire class. I mean, it's like you're going to be with me every night, for whatever. It's too long. It's too much. But I think components of that class I can easily do in that format. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the application of the flowchart of Deadly Force. I'm probably going to do it in 2.5 hour segments, and it'll be a Zoom seminar. I'm going to put it up for sale on my the Suarez Tactics page, probably next week, and I'll set a date and everything else. And so the idea will be that on two afternoons or evenings, we will do 2.5 hours, and then we'll do 2.5 hours at another time for a 5-hour total. And that'll cover the entire application of the flowchart of Deadly Force. And I think it's exciting. I think this is a very interesting thing, and I think those of you that have attended the seminar before, you'll agree that it's a complete paradigm shifter when it comes to the entire justification aspect and speaking to law enforcement and the whole aftermath thing and all of that. So we're going to do that. It's going to be announced shortly. And listen, if there are other things that you would like me to do on Zoom, as far as training seminars, obviously we're not going to go and shoot on Zoom, but things like mindset tactics, that sort of thing. Let me know in the comments, and why not? We'll do it. We can do anything we want. Okay. I haven't priced out the seminar yet, but it's going to be open to pretty much everybody that wants. My Patreon members are going to get a hefty discount. So I'll announce that on a newsletter probably next week. So anyway, that's it. Hope you guys have a great day. Peace out.